Back everyone. President Donald Trump is beginning his new term by taking some different paths in foreign policy. His latest tariffs are targeting America's biggest trading partners, which are retaliating against the U.S. in response. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian president is also saying he wants to come back to the negotiating table with the U.S. now that Trump has cut off military aid after a meeting between the two leaders devolved into a shouting match in the Oval Office.
Today we are sitting down with Jeremi Suri. He is a professor at the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas. Jeremi, thanks so much for being here. We've got a lot of ground to cover.
Yes, we do.
We do want to start with an update this morning. We're learning that the U.S. is cutting off intelligence sharing with Ukraine. So what do you make of that change, as well as the withdrawal of American support for Ukraine in this ongoing conflict with Russia?
Well, cutting off military and intelligence support for Ukraine is basically an act designed to force the Ukrainians to give in. Ukraine depends upon the United States for weapons, and it depends upon the United States for information about Russia, what Russia is doing. For example, American intelligence sources will provide Ukraine with information about Russian war plans, about where Russia is massing force, about evidence of Russian drone strikes and things of that sort. Without that information, the Ukrainians are fighting blind. And so what we're doing is we're making it harder for them to continue to resist Russia. And I think that's an effort by President Trump to force them to give in to Putin's demands.
In that same vein, President Trump mentioned in his speech last night to Congress that he got a letter from the Ukrainian president saying that Volodymyr Zelensky is perhaps willing to come back to the negotiating table with this U.S. deal about rare earth minerals. What would you say about those commending Trump for taking a tougher stance on Ukraine that's led to perhaps a deal maybe coming back in the works? What would you say to that?
Well, I think the challenge is that the Ukrainian people are defending their territory after they have been invaded by Russia. Those are the facts. President Trump said the opposite of that. They are defending themselves the way we would defend our territory if someone invaded us. There is a good argument to be made that the president is making that we need a peace deal. But it has to be a peace deal that ends the war so Ukrainians are secure in their territory. If the war ends with Russia in control of a third of Ukraine and Russia stronger and ready to attack again, then it's not a peace that the Ukrainians should accept. It's not one we would accept. And my fear is that the president is pushing the Ukrainians to accept exactly that kind of a deal.
Yeah, and we have yet to see whether America would provide any assurances to be able to defend in Ukraine in any way if that should happen again.
That's why the shouting match occurred in the White House. President Zelensky was saying, I will agree to the minerals deal, I will agree to a ceasefire, but you, the United States, must promise you will protect me from Vladimir Putin using this ceasefire just to prepare for another invasion.
Lots to follow there. We do want to turn now because we also heard a lot about tariffs in the president's joint address to Congress last night. We know that President Trump is reportedly going to talk with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today about this brewing trade war. So talk about that meeting. What do you expect to come out of that? And then how significant do you think it is for the U.S. to be enacting these import taxes on some of our biggest trading partners?
Well, it's important to say that Canada and Mexico are longtime allies and very important trading partners, and what they trade with us is vital to our economy: lumber, energy sources, things of that kind. And in the past, we have worked with them so that we can open up trade avenues, so that we can reduce costs for consumers. What President Trump is doing is actually putting taxes on trade with these countries, which will raise the costs for every consumer. The National Home Building Association sent a letter to President Trump saying that they expect housing prices will go up more than 25% as a consequence of these tariffs. I think President Trump is hoping that these countries will buckle down and provide some sort of concession to the United States, but I'm not sure they will, because they don't want to be in a situation where the United States is bullying them. We are their ally, we are not their boss.
And in our last few moments, what do you make of the U.S. now doing this, where they're potentially are enacting tariffs on some of our biggest trading partners, just in general from what you've seen in the past years?
Well, as a historian, I will say that we have a long tradition of doing this. We haven't done it in the last 50 years. We're sort of going back to our history in the early 20th century, the history of the Smoot-Hawley tariff. And in the past, what that has meant is that as consumers have paid more. The last 60 to 70 years, all of us pay less for things that we consume every day because of free trade. This will raise costs. It might protect some businesses in the U.S. from foreign competition, but it will mean the average consumer in Texas will pay more for a house, for clothing, and for food.
Jeremi Suri with the LBJ School, thank you so much for this context.
Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate it. We'll be back right after the break.